Okay, so this first demo is on setting up your settings, like I mentioned, so they all match. Again, it's setting my hotkeys, setting up templates, and finally setting up the backup. As I mentioned, the files you need are on Box. They are in the Spring 2020 folder under Setup. And for now, what you mainly need is the settings.sldreg, smw, and part W. So if you download those three files, you should be good to go. Okay. I would then also fire up SolidWorks. So going through this, once you do have SolidWorks open, and again, we can go through this a second time after this. This is just recording, so you can all see what I'm doing, but I can go through it again with you all step by step. Once you have it open, if you go to Tools, you want to go to Save and Restore Settings. Again, if you have previously used SolidWorks and you want to save your current settings, you can do that. It may do it automatically anyway. I believe it does actually. It will ask you at some point. But what we want is Restore Settings. So you want to press this button, click Next. This is where you want to browse to wherever you downloaded those files. So for me, it went to my desktop. I'm realizing now that some of you, maybe most of you, are new to Windows. So if you are, the file, I guess this will be a bit of a, sorry, a bit of a sidebar here. Yeah, if you're using Windows for the first time, there's basically you have folders and you keep things in folders. I mean, it's not terribly different from a Mac. Is this completely brand new or confusing to anybody? Show of hands. Have we all used Windows to some degree? Okay, cool. So I'm assuming that if you've downloaded this from Box, it's going to go to a download folder, which you can navigate to, right? It's typically here if you bring up File Explorer. Or, again, I have mine come to my desktop. Okay, sorry for that sidebar. So once you have SolidWorks open and you have your files downloaded, you can go to Save Restore Settings. You want to go to Restore and click Next. This is going to ask you what you want to restore from. So you want to click Browse. And here you might want to navigate to your Downloads folder. Or for me, again, it goes to my desktop where my settings are. Basically, you want to find this file and click Open. It will update all of these things, the layout, everything. And go ahead and click Next. Here's that checkbox. If you want to create a backup of your current settings, you can do that. It's not necessary. It's up to you. You can go ahead and click Finish. Basically, it's saying, hey, you didn't check this box. Is that okay? I'm saying yes. It shouldn't take too long. It says successfully done. Okay. So once you've done that, you should now have all of my hotkeys, and now also the view plane of SolidWorks should look the same as mine. So we should all be on the same page. The next thing you want to set up is the templates, okay? So as I mentioned, there were two template files you downloaded. Again, these might be in your download folder. This is where, you know, let's say they are in your download folder, you might want to copy them somewhere, right? So if it's Windows for the first time, you can drag selects. There is a right click, or I believe on a Mac it might be a command click. You can say copy or Control C, Command C, and maybe make a new folder somewhere. To make a new folder, it's simply just going to, whoops. So if I'm in here, I can right click or command click and say new folder, and you could call it whatever you want, templates, and put the files in there. As you can see, I already did this. I called it template test. So you just want to know where these two files are. It's a long way to say that. You could even leave them in your download folder if that's what you want to do. It's not a big deal. So once you have that done, or once you know where those are, you want to click on this gear icon. And it's a little confusing. It's not the arrow to the right. It's this one here. And you want to look for file organization, file locations, which is about in the middle on the side here. This is where you want to now click Add. And here's where you want to navigate to wherever you put those template files. So whether they're in your downloads, or again, for me, I created a new folder in here. I just showed you how to make this one called templates, but I have it in template test. You can select this and just say select folder. And it should then add it into this list here, and you can simply click OK. This is asking you, do you want to be able to find those paths? You just go ahead and click yes. And now what your computer may ask you this, basically saying like, hey, SOLIDWORKS is going to make a change. Do you agree? Yes. Not sure why it's asking me twice. Maybe because it's, yeah, I don't know. Say yes. What that does is now when you go to create a new part, which is later in this document, you'll see at the top here, there's something that says template test. If I click on that, these are the two templates to use. Sorry, if you don't see this, this is maybe what you see when you create a new part. It's clicking advanced. And again, we'll get into this later. But this is how you create a new part using my settings, I think. So that is how you get basically these templates that I have created for you all. For what it's worth, SOLIDWORKS, you can use whatever measurement tool you want. I recommend doing inches, and I think that's how I'm going to run most of the class. But if you're used to the metric system, that's totally fine too. Okay, next up, we're going to set the backup recover settings. And again, the place to do that is also in the gear. And it's, I believe, highlighted here. It's underneath view. It's towards the bottom, backup recover. And I'll just talk through what we're looking at. The most important thing, once again, is to know where the backups are going, okay? So if you installed this, there's probably an automated backup location. You can always click these three dots. And again, I could set my backup location to also be in the same file or folder I created, right? I mean, you could create a folder that's just called like SOLIDWORKS files or something, or like setup files. So you could select one of these folders and click OK. I'm going to leave this where it's at for me. You can obviously change how often you want it to auto recover. I believe the default is 10 minutes. I find that works okay for me. My guess is the trade-off is if you set this to 1 minute, it might make your program run a bit slower because it's going to be constantly saving. I think 10 minutes is an acceptable amount of time to lose. If for some reason your computer's running slow, you could try setting this to higher, but I would just leave it at the default. Backups. So what this does, I don't have this on by default, but it might not be a bad idea to do this. The way that this works is if you're working on a file and you hit save, it always keeps one save iteration back. And there is a website that explains this well. Let me pause. Okay, here and I can email you all this website if this helps. Here's kind of the explanation of it, okay? So the way a backup works, if you have one backup set, you have this. If you create a change and you save it, it will create a backup of that save. Once you make a change, it basically keeps the previous saved iteration in case you accidentally did something you didn't want to do after the fact. So okay, you have this object, you poke some holes in it. When you save this new file, the backup will create this file for you in case you want to go back to not having the holes or something. It's a very simplified example, but sometimes you'll do a command or something that will cause a problem. Okay, so the question is, will it just keep creating files and will you just end up with a bunch of files? That's a good question. The answer to that is if we go back to the settings here and look at it, you can tell it how many backups you want. So in this case, number of copies per document 1. So for each document you're working on, it will only create one version of that. So when you save this one, this backup will go over this one. Does that make sense? So it won't just add a new one, it will just write over the old one, okay? And now that's for each document you're working on. You will see here too, you can say you can remove backups after a certain number of days. So like, let's say you're working on a file a day. If you're deleting it every 7 days, it will never get more than 7 files. Does that answer your question? But let's say you want more, you could amp this up, right? You could turn this all the way up to whatever. You could make this keep for longer days. That's a good question. Okay, will it rename the file from backup 1 to backup 2? I'll be honest, I don't know the answer. My guess is that it will. My guess is, I haven't read this in a while, but I believe this is set. Here you go. They set the number to 5. So I'm going to guess that it would do that. I've never had to use that feature. So if you set this number to something like 2 or 3, my guess is that it would do something like this. I think my advice to you all for this class is I would follow these settings to every 10 minutes and just have one file that's deleted after 7 days or something. Because I can't imagine there would be anything critical that you'd have to go back to. But it's to each their own. Set it however you see fit. That covers basically the setups. It was just getting my hotkey settings, having the computer point to your templates, and then setting your backups. So once you have all of that, you're good to go.